Yeah, Gita, our chapter 35 till there we have done. Correct, no? From 36 we have to do, I believe.
Right.
Is it true? Correct, no, bro? So let me
Yeah, I
read.
think that's right, Prabhuji.
Arjuna uvacha अथ केन प्रयुक्तोऽयं पापं चरति पुरुषः अनिच्छनापि वाष्णेया बलादिव नियोजितः. Yes. Virat, bro, can you read the translation? Can you read the translation, Virat?
Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? Purport: a living entity, as part and parcel of the Supreme, is originally spiritual, pure, and free from all material contaminations. Therefore, by nature, he is not subject to the sins of the material world. Mm. But when he is in contact with the material nature, he acts in many sinful ways without hesitation, and sometimes even against his will. As such, Arjuna's question to Krishna is very sanguine as to the perverted nature of the living entities. Although the living entity sometimes does not want to act in sin, he is still forced to act. Sinful actions are not, however, impelled by the supersoul within, but are due to another cause, as the Lord explains in the next verse.
Hmm. So here Arjuna is very asking very honest inquiry, that as if one is compelled to sinful acts. Actually, impelled. So one may be impelled, but one cannot be compelled. One cannot be like forced until unless we sanction. Somehow we allow ourselves to get pulled also. So Maya can impel us, but cannot compel. There's no compulsion for us. So that's how the pure devotee comes and says that you have that free will to say no. But yes, that force is very powerful. That's true. And Arjuna is very honestly admitting that. Hmm. So therefore, by nature, is not subject to the sins of material world because we are pure. But when we are in contact with material nature, we act sinful, active, sinful ways, and without hesitation. Sometimes against his will means yes, we have will, but weak will. So and then as soon you're tempted, then the force of lust, which Krishna will clarify, is nothing but force of lust. So it pulls one particular direction. So this is not super soul, which is impending, but this is another call that Krishna will explain here. Sri Bhagavan Vacha, Kamesha, Krodesha, Rajoguna Samudbhava, Mahashunu, Mahapapma, Videyana, Mihava, Prashant.
Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mood of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all devouring sinful enemy of this
Devouring. Yeah,
devouring sinful enemy of this world.
yes, purport.
When a living entity comes in contact with the material creation, his eternal love for Krishna is transformed into lust in association with the mood of passion. Or, in other words, the sense of love of God becomes transformed into lust, as milk in contact with sour tamarind is transformed into yogurt. Then again, when lust is unsatisfied, it turns into wrath. Wrath is transformed into illusion, and illusion continues the material existence. Therefore, lust is the greatest enemy of the living entity, and it is lust only which induces pure living entity to remain entangled in the material world. Wrath is the manifestation of the mode of ignorance. These modes exhibit themselves as wrath and other corollaries. If therefore the mode of passion, instead of being degraded into the mode of ignorance, is elevated to the mode of goodness by the prescribed methods of living and acting, then one can be saved from degradation of wrath by spiritual attachment.
Mm. Sorry, go ahead.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead expanded himself into many for his ever increasing spiritual bliss, and the living entities are parts and parcel of this spiritual bliss. They also have partial independence, but by misuse of their independence, when the service attitude is transformed into the propensity of for sense enjoyment, they come under the sway of lust. This material creation is created by the Lord to give facility to the conditioned soul to fulfill these lustful propensities, and when completely baffled by prolonged lustful activities, the living entity begin to inquire about their real position. This inquiry is the beginning of Vedanta Sutra, where it is said, Athot Brahma Chin
Tato Brahma Jigyasa.
Jigyasa. One should inquire into the Supreme, and the Supreme is defined in Srimad Bhagavatam as Janmada Asya Yato Navadya Itras Itratas Cha, or the origin of everything is the Supreme Brahman. Therefore, the origin of lust is also the Supreme. If therefore lust is transformed into love for the Supreme, or transformed into Krishna consciousness, or in the other words, desiring everything for Krishna, then both lust and wrath can be spiritualized. Hanuman, the great servitor of Lord Rama, exhibited his wrath by burning the golden city of Ravan, but by doing so he became the greatest devotee of the Lord. Here also in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord induces Arjuna to engage his wrath upon his enemies with the satisfaction of the Lord. Therefore, lust and wrath, when they are employed into Krishna consciousness, become our friends instead of our enemies.
Yeah, there is a verse also. Right. Yeah. See this one. काम कृष्ण कर्मार्पणे क्रोध भक्ता देशी जने लोभ साधु संगे हरि कथा मोह स्थलबे बिना मद कृष्ण गुण गाने नियुक्त करिबा यथा तथा. I will engage my lust by offering the fruits of my work to Lord Krishna. That means desire everything for service of the Lord. So you can desire preaching, expanding, and doing so many services. So that way your lust is purified. Then you can. So lust is like desire. So desire for service, desire for pleasing the Lord. So lust is desire. So instead of desiring one's own gratification, one can desire service of Krishna. And anger. Bhakta Deshi Jana. So Kama Krishna Kamarpana. Krodha Bhakta Deshi Jana. One who is envious of devotees. No? So we can be angry to them. Like Hanumanji became angry towards Rama. Arjuna became angry towards Duryodhana. I will engage greed by becoming greedy to hear the glories of the Lord in association of the sainted devotees. So one should become greedy. Engaging. We should be like greedy like how? Anytime there is katha, anytime there is kirtan, anytime there is program, immediately are like signing in, coming. So greedy more and more. Arey Prabhu, abhi to class suna. Now you heard the class. We came for another class. Yes, Prabhu. I want to do more. So greed should be there. So there should be greed. Like how people are greedy for money. They work for 8 hours, then they will go as extra work. They get for more 4 hours, then there's more uh, some kind of what is it, freelancing also in between. So people just out of greed can get into so many engagements. You have to become greedy for Krishna, greedy to hear the glories of the Lord in association with you. By attaining my worshipful Lord Krishna, I will engage the quality of bewilderment. Sorry, by not attaining my worshipful Lord Krishna, I will engage the quality of bewilderment. That is moha. Moha ishta labha. Moha ishta labha. Attainment. Bine. So, by not attaining my worship of Krishna, I will engage the quality of bewilderment. And I will engage madness by becoming mad to glorify the transcendental qualities of the Lord. Like sometimes Maharaj gives lecture for 4 hours, 5 hours, 7 hours. No? So, Maharaj, kya ho gaya? No? It's just a madness. No? There is no time he's seeing. There is no prasadam thing, and just going on and on. Sometimes it's mad to glorify Krishna. In this way, I will specialize all these material qualities for the service of the Lord. Nice, no?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Just 1 minute. Huh? Hare Krishna. Okay. So moha, I'm still thinking. Moha. Mm, yeah. Anyway, maybe for moha, I will.
Moha means bewilderment.
No, that is true. That's true. But how the moha is engaged in Krishna's service, that I'm thinking. So he's saying that by not attaining my worshipful Lord Krishna, I will engage the quality of bewilderment. Yeah. So anyway, let me get more confirmation about it. Okay. So that's how we can engage all these things into Krishna's service. One thing we have to give up, that is envy. Envy cannot be engaged, it is said. So envy should be given up. Envy is the dangerous thing. It can be doubt, it can be antidote of envy is appreciation. When you appreciate the devotee's heartbeat, that is antidote of envy. 37.37. धूमेनाव्रियते वाहिर्तादर्शो मलेन च यथोल्बेनावृतो गर्भस्तथा तेनेदमावृतम्. Yes, Virat, we can read.
Translation: As fire is covered by smoke, as the mirror is covered by dust, or as the embryo is covered by the womb, the living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of this lust. Purport: There are 3 degrees of covering of the living entity by which his pure consciousness is obscured. This covering is but lust under different manifestations, like smoke in the fire, dust on the mirror, and the womb about the embryo. When lust is compared to smoke, it is understood that the fire of the living spark can be a little perceived. In other words, when the living entity exhibits his Krishna consciousness slightly, he may be likened to the fire covered by smoke. Although fire is necessary when there is smoke, there is no overt manifestation of fire in the early stage. This stage is like the beginning of Krishna consciousness. The dust on the mirror refers to a cleansing process of the mirror of the mind by so many spiritual methods. The best process is to chant the holy names of the Lord. The embryo covered by the womb is an analogy illustrating a helpless position, for the child in the womb is so helpless that he cannot even move. This stage of living condition can be compared to that of the trees. The trees are also living entities, but they can be put in such a condition of life by such a great exhibition of lust that they are almost void of all consciousness. The covered mirror is compared to the birds and the beasts, and the smoke covered fire is compared to the living being. In
Human
the
being. Human being.
to the human being. In the form of a human being, the living entity may revive a little Krishna consciousness, and if he makes further development, the fire of spiritual life can be kindled in the human form of life. By careful handling of the smoke in the fire, fire can be made to blaze. Therefore, the human form of life is a chance for the living entity to escape the entanglement of material existence. In the human form of life, one can conquer the enemy lust by cultivation of Krishna consciousness under able guidance.
Different degrees of lust. That means the intensity of the lust is manifested in different species. So different species have different intensity of covering of lust. Here's the example of dust on the mirror, smoke in the fire, dust on the mirror, and the womb above the embryo. So he compares different analogy to different things. Like he says, beginning of Krishna consciousness, that is fire, smoke, and fire. Fire in the smoke, smoke in the fire. So there's the beginning of Krishna consciousness. So dust on the mirror refers to cleansing process. Okay, and it says actually dust in the mirror is compares to here this one, the birds and beasts, and smoke covered fire is compared to human beings, and the trees are compared to, it's like very much great covering. So it is compared to the embryo covered in the womb. This like very thick covering. So smoke covered in the fire is much easier to get kindled. So human form flies is like that. So one can quickly begin Krishna consciousness and become perfect. So we have that opportunity. We already awakening our love for Krishna and thinning the lust, covering of lust. So when we are under guidance of bona fide spiritual master and devotees, so under able guidance, we are cultivating Krishna consciousness. So that's how we have so much of hope of conquering this enemy of lust. So cultivation is a cultivation. Cultivation means it takes time, it takes hard work, it's a process, requires patience. Cultivation. Today, Manmohan Shampoo was sharing from 11th canto in Bhagavatam class, beautifully shared. He's saying 3 things are required. One thing is we have to constantly hear and chant, keep doing hearing, chanting. Second thing, we should keep Lord in our heart and keep on serving. And third thing is says that third thing is important, is required is have patience. Be patient. That how so gradually all these coverings will be loosened and then you can get Krishna. Okay. Avritam jnanam etena jnanino nityavarina kamarupena kaunteya dushparena nalena cha. Translation. Venu Prabhu, would like to read translation?
Thus, the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire.
Purport. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. 1 second. It is said that in the Manusmriti that lust cannot be satisfied by any amount of sense enjoyment, just as fire is never extinguished by a constant supply of fuel. In the material world, the center of all activities is sex, and thus this material world is called Maithunya Agara, or the shackles of sex life. In the ordinary prison house, criminals are kept within the bars. Similarly, the criminals which are disobedient to the laws of the Lord are shackled by sex life. Advancement of material civilization on the basis of sense gratification means increasing the duration of material existence of a living entity. Therefore, this lust is a symbol of ignorance by which the living entity is kept within. Within the material world. While one enjoys sense gratification, it may be that there is some feeling of happiness, but actually that so-called feeling of happiness is the ultimate enemy of sense enjoyer. Surrender unto me.
Beautiful, right? Right? So, and they're saying that the living entity is going for it because there is some sense of happiness. He feels like things like that. There is something. There is this very enemy, but that's a trap, like a bait. For the fish, the bait is there. So called feeling of happiness, but it's actually a trap. So those who are disobedient to the Lord, they are trapped. They are put behind the prison. So that's the thing is that the more you become submissive servant of very Guru Vaishnavas, the more this the lust will evaporate because the antidote to lust is submissive service. Desire to please, not desire to enjoy simplicity, but desire to please. What is the antidote of? Just come to see over my charger. Yeah, we'll go ahead next. Prabhu. Indriyani mano buddhiryastaadi tatmachite etar vimohayatasesha jnanamavritya dehinam. Yeah.
Translation: the senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders them. Purport.
This is a strategic position. Lust has taken.
Purport. The enemy has captured different strategic positions in the body of the conditioned soul, and therefore Lord Krishna is giving hints of these places. So that one who wants to conquer the enemy may know where he can be found. Mind is the center of all activities of the senses, and thus when we hear about sense objects, the mind generally becomes a reservoir of all ideas of sense gratification. And as a result, the mind and the senses become the repositories of lust. Next, the intelligent department becomes Next, the intelligence department becomes the capital of such lustful propensities. Intelligence is the immediate next door neighbor of the spirit soul. Lusty intelligence influences the spirit soul to acquire the false ego and identify itself with matter, and thus with the mind and senses. The spirit soul becomes addicted to enjoying the material senses and mistakes this as true happiness. This false identification of the spirit soul is very nicely explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Yash Yatma Buddhi Kunepi Tri Dhatuke Swadi Kaladradishu Bhuma Iyadihe.
Yes, bro. Oh, sorry.
Yat Tirte Buddhir Saili Na Kar Hi Cheej Janisvi Abhineshu Saeva Go Kara. A human being who identifies this, the human being who identifies his body made of three elements with his self, who considers the byproducts of the body to be his kinsman, who considers the land of birth worshipable, and who goes to the place of pilgrimage simply to take a bath rather than to meet men of transcendental knowledge there, is considered like an ass or a cow.
It's a very beautiful verse. So whole problem is because of misidentification of the body. So say yasyatma buddhi kunapit dhatu. Yeah. So there are strategic locations where the lust has taken shelter. So wants to conquer the enemy, is to find that where is the enemy. Mind is the center of also. Prabhupada has given very beautiful lecture on this from verse 37 onwards. I highly recommend you all can hear that lecture. Prabhupada very beautifully explains. He says that how if you having in the seat, on the driver's seat, if there is lust is sitting. So you're saying that so if you make lust sitting in our mind, intelligence and all, then it will direct our life accordingly. It will influence us accordingly. But instead of that, if you make Krishna sit there, then this lust will go away. So he was saying that just like if you're having ink bottle, if you pour all water, then ink will go away, like that. And yeah, so basically he says replace the lust by having Krishna there, just serving Krishna, desire to serve the Lord. So, but you can hear that it's very beautiful, proper explained. The way explains is very nice. So those who wants to conquer the enemy may know where he can be found. Mind is the center of all activities. Thus we hear about the sense objects. The mind generally becomes aware of all ideas. of sense gratification. And as a result, the mind and senses become the repository of lust. Yeah, so mind and senses, they are kind of, so senses like the outlet, and the mind is, it's like the senses are clubbed to the mind, and the mind also, so it also gets captured by the lust. And intelligence is like the, the next door neighborhood which can help, but the intelligence also gets corrupted by the lust. So how all, these locations are affected by this terrorist of lust, and that's how the senses, they get for, they go try to go for gratification. The mind also, get full with so many varieties of lustful thoughts, and then intelligence also supports, because intelligence also into the lust. That's how the whole system is corrupt. So we had to actually, install the antivirus, that is Krishna consciousness. That's why we have to engage ourselves in Krishna consciousness. So that way, the purification is, guaranteed. That how intelligence gets purified, mind gets purified, senses gets purified, and then Krishna, sits in mind, sentence, senses, and intelligence. So related to this picture is very nice. So this false ego is the root cause. So because see, when you identify yourself with body, then immediately want to think in terms of gratifying body. When you identify yourself as soul, then you don't want to go for this kind of bodily enjoyment. So that's why Prabhupada always, emphasizes on this point of you're not the body of soul. So more we capture this point and we act on that platform, we remind ourselves, like today, Virat was saying that Prabhupada was sick, but I was trying to remind myself I'm not the body. It's a very good thing, actually. That's what we should do. Because we have heard and read so much philosophy, but we don't think in that way many times. You'll see there's a lot of gap in our thinking and what we know. A lot of gap. You can clearly see, all of us can see, like how Kripa does, how much I know and what way my thinking is. I have to really, see how there is to be a lot of homework to be done. Because yeah, we know a lot. We may hear, read, speak, but do we regularly think similar way? The way we know so many things. We know we are not the body, we are soul, but do I think like that I'm not the body, I'm soul, or I get affected? Oh, I'm coughing. Oh, when you're not coughing, soul is not coughing. The body is coughing. Body has issue, soul doesn't have issue. But yeah, we are trapped in the body. So it's a good reminder that yes, I'm not the body. So yes, body may have some ailment diseases, but I'm not the body. So we can get some strength to tolerate. Yeah. Then we go for so many varieties. In Germany, we want to eat gulab jamun and all that. So we are not tongue. I'm not this tongue. Why should I be mad after this taste? I'm not this tongue. So the devotee thinks in terms of, okay, this is mercy of Krishna. This Krishna has tasted this. So he tries to Krishnaize it. But the point is, the more you identify with body, the more we get into material enjoyment business. And more you actually situate yourself with conviction that I'm not the body, I'm soul, it's very favorable to, it's very favorable. And it matters a lot. It is not some kind of just mechanically, thinking, but actually it matters because it's a transcendental knowledge. As soon as you think you're not the body or soul, you're making some advancement actually. You just, that reminder is a good advancement. But that whole paradigm changes, paradigm shifts happen. So it's very important to, and many times we may not be able to remind ourselves on our own, then we have to keep reading, hearing, so that we keep getting the reminders. And as you become more serious and advanced, then this reminder should become automatic. We should keep on understanding, thinking that I am not a body, I'm soul, I'm actually a servant of Lord. So it becomes more default by default. And till it becomes default, we have to keep telling ourselves, keep reading, keep hearing, keep telling. Of course, after we become advanced and realize, also we keep reading, hearing. Relationship more and more. Text 41. Tasma tattvami indriyana indao niyamya sarbar tarshava papanam padavidyan Jnana Vijnana Nashanam. Translation.
Translation: O therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses, and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization.
Yes, purport.
Purport: the Lord advised Arjuna to regulate the senses from the very beginning so that he could curb the greatest sinful enemy of lust, which destroys the urge for self-realization and specific knowledge of the self. Jnana refers to knowledge of self as distinguished from non-self, or in other words, knowledge that the spirit soul is not the body. Vijnana refers to the specific knowledge of the spirit soul's constitutional position and his relationship to the Supreme Soul. It is explained thus in the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Jnanam param guhyam me yad vijnanam samanvitam sarhasyam tadangam cha gnana gaditam maya.
The knowledge of the self and the Supreme Self is very confidential and mysterious. But such knowledge and specific realization can be understood if explained with their various aspects by the Lord Himself. Bhagavad Gita gives us that general and specific knowledge of the self. The living entities are parts and parcels of the Lord, and therefore they are simply meant to serve the Lord. This consciousness is called Krishna consciousness. So from the very beginning of life, one has to learn this Krishna consciousness, and thereby one may become fully Krishna conscious and act accordingly. Lust is only the perverted reflection of the love of God, which is natural for every living entity. But if one is educated in Krishna consciousness from the very beginning, that natural love of God cannot deteriorate into lust. When love of God deteriorates into lust, it is very difficult to return to the normal condition. Nevertheless, Krishna consciousness is so powerful that even a late beginner can become a lover of God by following the regulative principles of devotional service. So, from any stage of life, or from the time of understanding its urgency, one can begin regulating the senses in Krishna consciousness, devotional service of the Lord, and turn the lust into love of Godhead, the highest perfectional stage of human life.
Krishna God is a very powerful process. But from the beginning only, if it is, efforts are made, that's best. So he's saying that from beginning only, one should curb. And beginning also means as soon as there is some kind of attack of the lust. So from beginning itself, one should be cautious and careful and devote himself to Krishna's service. So one should always have some weapons ready. Like when you see that you're getting unnecessarily into some direction, it's not conducive for your Krishna consciousness. Immediately one should keep something, like you may hear a lecture. We should always do this. Whenever we find anyway low, don't wait for anything. Just go to a lecture here. Just open the book and read. The only thing is that inertia, makes you feel, oh, I will not, or no, you just keep worrying only. But actually, that inertia, if you break it, just be a little pushy to yourself. Go and hear the lecture. You feel so wonderful actually, immediately, because the nature of Maya is that it will discourage you, it will make you hopeless, and then attacks more also. So that's why it's very covering energy. So if you lust and all, it's like it covers. One becomes very deluded. So that's why one should keep always, in very high voltage of Krishna consciousness. If you find you're getting kind of low, then also you should immediately take shelter. So knowledge of the self, the supreme self is very confidential and mysterious, but such knowledge and specific relation can be understood and explained with their ways as with the Lord Himself. So Lord has explained here in Gita also. So Gita gives us that general and specific knowledge of the self, that it is a part of us of the Lord, they meant to serve the Lord. So this idea we should get from the beginning. Like our Prashant Pru's daughter is a Garangi. So Garangi will get to understand knowledge from beginning only. So very good. Every day Garangi is hearing so much of Hare Krishna. That's very nice. So from early childhood only, one should get very strong, solid Krishna consciousness that will help the person in the future. But even if somebody hasn't got, no problem. Krishna consciousness is very powerful. So whenever you begin, take it with urgency and seriousness, and it can be transformed to love. Love God deteriorates into lust. It is very difficult to return to the normal condition. Yeah. So we should be careful. Very beginning, we should try. इंद्रियाणि प्राण्याहुरिन्द्रियेभ्यः परं मनः मनसस्तु परा बुद्धिः यो बुद्धे परस्तु सः. So this is second last. Okay. You read the translation, Prashant Prabhu?
Working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. And he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. Purport. The senses are different outlets for the activities of lust. Lust is reserved within
Another
the
thing I wanted to share with you all. See, previous verse it is said that how from very beginning one should curb and regulate the senses and all that it says. And also it says that in any stage of life, one can do that. So yeah, you can do from the beginning itself, but anytime you realize that you are getting low, you're going low in your Krishna consciousness, you're getting doubted. Any time, as soon as you realize, immediately you should turn to Krishna. That's the point. And one should never get discouraged. One should not get discouraged by any chance, any means. So he said the greatest weapon of Maya is discouragement. So mind may give you the best of the thoughts, mind may give you the dirtiest of the thoughts. Because mind is like so much of, I mean, one shouldn't get into how much he is in Maya. What one should worry about, how much I can just quickly take shelter of Krishna. That is more important. You not identifying the mind is very important. Sometimes some people will get paralyzed too much by too much analyzing. The analysis not required too much. Just know that yes, overall I'm a conditioned soul and we have issues with our mind and senses. So don't no need to too much analyze. Take shelter of Krishna. That's more important. Taking shelter of the Lord is more important. So no need to so much analyze how much Maya you are in. You are in Maya overall, you know it. The more important thing is to be in Krishna. Taking shelter of the Lord is what is more important than desire. So Rasham was telling this point once. Mind can give yes to the thoughts and verses. Sometimes you get very nice, very Krishna conscious, suddenly you may get some kind of not so Krishna conscious thought. And sometimes you may be in some place where hardly there is Krishna consciousness thoughts or Krishna consciousness going on. But you may remember Krishna like that. You may get very, so don't get proud of that you're a pure devotee, and also don't get very much completely discouraged. Mind other ways also it does like that. So because Mahadev is very powerful, it can make you feel very discouraged sometimes, or make you feel proud also sometimes through mind. So don't care about mind. You care about taking Krishna consciousness seriously. That's what is desired. And we have to be very encouraging to ourselves also. God help those who help themselves. We should be a good friend to us. We should be a good friend to ourselves. We have to become good mentors to ourselves. We're taking help of intelligence and association of sadhus, association of Prabhupada books and lectures. We have to help ourselves. We have to be a good counselor of ourselves. If you can be a good counselor, then those your real guides and counselors can truly help you more. So the good counselor means he takes the help from so many varieties of uh, sources like Vedic literature, Gita, Bhagavatam, devotees, lectures, like that. So all of them are there to help you, but you have to help first. So you have to be friend to yourself. When you are friend to yourself, then all help will be given. All help you can take then. But if everybody is trying to help you, but you are not paying attention in helping yourself, in elevating yourself, then becomes challenging. So we have to be good mentors to ourselves. That perspective. So the working sense of superior matter, mind is higher than the senses, intelligence higher than the mind, and the soul is even higher than the intelligence. Yes, purport.
Purport: the senses are different outlets for the activities of lust. Lust is reserved within the body, but it is given vent through the senses. Therefore, the senses are superior to the body as a whole. These outlets are not in use when there is a superior consciousness or Krishna consciousness. In Krishna consciousness, the soul makes direct connections with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, the hierarchy of bodily functions, as described here, ultimately ends in the Supreme Soul. Bodily action means the functions of the senses, and stopping the senses means stopping all bodily actions. But since the mind is active, then even though the body may be silent and at rest, the mind will act, as it does during dreaming. But above the mind is the determination of the intelligence, and above the intelligence is the soul proper. If therefore the soul is intelligence, if therefore the soul is directly engaged with the Supreme, naturally all the subordinates, namely the intelligence, mind, and senses, will be automatically engaged. In the Katha Upanishad, there is a similar passage in which it is said that the objects of sense gratifications are superior to the senses, and mind is superior to the sense objects. If therefore the mind is directly engaged in the service of the Lord constantly, then there is no chance that the senses will become engaged in other ways. This mental attitude has already been explained. Param dristva
Nivartate.
nivratate. If the mind is engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, there is no chance of its being engaged in the lower propensities. In the Katha Upanishad, the soul has been described as Mahan, the Great. Therefore, the soul is above all, namely, the sense objects, the senses, the mind, and the intelligence. Therefore, directly understanding the constitutional position of the soul is the solution of the whole problem. With intelligence, one has to seek.
Oh, yeah. Correct.
I think 42. Yeah.
You can do one thing. You can discuss 40 to 43rd, and then we will little bit have turning in this. I'll just come back. So
Okay.
Viratpu, can you share the screen and discuss these two verses among all of you? Okay. I'll come back in 5 minutes. You can discuss. Viratpu can share for last two verses.
Sure, Prabhuji. Does anyone have any reflection on 3.42?
think we need to complete the purport, Prabhu, with the last paragraph of this.
Oh, of 3.42?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay. This is the last paragraph, right?
Yes, with intelligence.
Okay.
With intelligence, one has to seek out the constitutional position of the soul and then engage the mind always in Krishna consciousness. That solves the whole problem. A nifty spiritualist is generally advised to keep aloof from the objects of the senses, but aside from that, one has to strengthen the mind by use of intelligence. If by intelligence one engages one's mind in Krishna consciousness by complete surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then automatically the mind becomes stronger, and even though the senses are very strong, like the serpents, they will be no more effective than serpents with broken fangs. But even though the soul is the master of intelligence and mind, and can you scroll down, Babuji?
This one?
Yeah. But even though the soul is the master of intelligence and mind and the senses also. Still, unless it is strengthened by the association with Krishna in Krishna consciousness, there is every chance of falling down due to the agitated mind.
Any reflection, Babaji? Hare Krishna?
Hare Krishna, sorry, I got just busy one. So yeah, Prabhuji, this I think the verse explains very well that soul is above all everything, like all the senses, intelligence, and mind. And even if the senses are too strong and we control our mind, intelligence, and eventually the soul, the senses won't be of any help even if they are too strong.
Nice. Should we do the next verse, Babaji?
I'll try the Sanskrit verse. Evam buddhet param buddhava sam samastabhya atmanam atmana jahi satrum mahabaho kam rupam durshadam. Translation: thus knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjun, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus, by spiritual strength, conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust.
Hmm.
Purport: this third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is conclusively directive to Krishna consciousness by knowing oneself as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead without considering impersonal voidness the ultimate end. In the material existence of life, one is certainly influenced by propensities for lust and desire for dominating the resources of material nature. Desire for overloading and for sense gratification is the greatest enemy of the conditioned soul. But by the strength of the Krishna consciousness, can you little scroll down? Krishna consciousness, one can be situated in a transcendental position without being influenced by the material senses and the mind, by steady intelligence directed towards one's pure identity. This is the sum total of this chapter. In the immature stage of the material existence, philosophical speculations and artificial attempts to control the senses. Can you please? Attempts to control the senses by the so-called practice of yogic postures can never help a man towards spiritual life. He must be trained in Krishna consciousness by higher intelligence.
Hmm. Prabhuji, my reflection was that Lord Krishna, he gives the exact treatment for controlling the mind and the senses and intelligence. He said that we have to use our spiritual intelligence, and by doing that, then we will be able to control our mind and our senses. Um, Alternatively, other people may try to use like material intelligence and their own interpretations, but it will never work. The only way we can control our lust is through spiritual strength and spiritual intelligence. And then it was concluded at the bottom of the purport that the way to increase your spiritual intelligence is to be trained in Krishna consciousness rather than just focus on
Mhm.
our own philosophical speculations and artificial attempts to control the senses by doing like Vedic posture, sorry, yogic postures and things like that. I thought that was really nice.
True, Prabhuji, yes. So as it mentioned that one should be trained by someone who is higher in Krishna consciousness. I hope so. That's what it means in the end, rather than speculation and all this philosophical speculation and artificial attempts to control the senses.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah, really nice verse. Thank you.
Oh, even the first sentence of the translation, I like that it says that we should understand that we are transcendental to material senses. So like we are above material senses, the mind and intelligence. And I like that because the previous verse said that the soul is more superior than the senses and the mind and intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
So when we understand the soul and that we are the soul, not the body, then we become more transcendental. And then
True. True, Prabhuji. And mainly it talks about how to control our senses, mind, intelligence using our soul and involving our soul in Krishna consciousness. And that's how one can control lust or
right.
make lust like as a useful tool rather than something
Mm.
destructive towards Krishna consciousness.
I like that they gave an example of how in the material world we utilize lust. So it says that we try to overlord, so we try to acquire more than what is necessary,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can enjoy sense gratification. But then Lord Krishna says that this is actually the greatest enemy of the conditioned soul.
Right.
That was a nice example because I see, like every day, even with myself, I used to try to overload and try to acquire
Mm-hmm.
so much.
Right. I think yeah, that is also one cause of misery and getting away from Krishna consciousness or spiritual journey.
Right.
True.
Nice. Shall I remove the screen share, Prabhuji?
Yeah, I think we're done with this chapter 3. Mostly like, yeah,
Do you want to
that
go
was it.
back to chapter 3.42 if you want? Did you want to look at it again or anything? Because Prabhuji not come back yet.
Yeah, I think I'm good
Good
with
with
this. I
that
think
one.
that, yeah, this one was talking about how soul is above all four or all three: mind, intelligence, and senses. Right.
Hmm.
And this one is also.
I like this sentence. If the mind is engaged in transcendental service of the Lord, there is no
Mm-hmm.
chance of being engaged in lower propensities.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Right. And even if it also talks like even if the senses are strong, if one controls the mind and intelligence, then then it can also control the senses, which makes us do all things.
Hmm. Right.
And
Nice.
we'll wait for Prabhuji to come. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So these are Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Are you still there?